Thank you for joining us for tonight's discussion on manhood, race, and culture. The topic tonight will be what the Black man ought to be and ought to do in the 20th century. We'll take our time tonight and begin examining who the Black man is, what the Black man should be doing, and what he ought to be doing as well in regards to being a father, a son, a brother to other Black men. What are his duties? What is he called to do? And what are the expectations of the world around him, most notably the expectations of Black women? Are Black men living up to those expectations? Do Black men even understand what Black women's expectations of them are at this present moment? Please stay tuned and feel free to join in with us at any time and join our intellectual community as we unearth the many multifaceted sides of the Black man, especially as we try to figure out what he ought to be and ought to do in this white nation that we know as the United States of America. All right, gang. You've heard the direction that we're going to go tonight, basically dealing with the idea of the Black man in America. And I utilize the term Black man um, specifically and for a purpose. And that reason is quite simply, I'm not talking about any other populace of Black men, even those who are in the Western Hemisphere. I'm speaking about those who are, as they would put it, what is it, ADOS? These Black men and these Black women who have developed a relatively unique culture from a almost a hellish experience at times of their existence where they were all that each other had. So I'd like to open it up and ask each of you, what is your view of what the Black man ought to be?
Well, I'll start, Doc. What the Black man ought to be here in America.
Could you
Uh,
could you please introduce yourself so that the audience would know who it is that's speaking?
yes, sir. Brother Maurice D. Muhammad. Um, and the question, who does the Black man or who should the Black man be in America? Well, one thing for sure, he has to be a man. He has to be provider, protector, maintainer, nourisher. Now, all of these words that I'm throwing out here, as we continue on our journey, some may be in a position, um, but not have all of those adjectives, right? So you can be in the position, you daddy, you home, you're being the protector role, but you may not be the lead provider role, right? So we got like we're on the a scale, you know, but at the end of the day, it is the sum total of everything that we are that helps to guide and protect and provide for our families. Living in America today, as we see another Black man was killed, um, we can't be the kind of men that sit around and just watch while other men are acting upon us. We have to get in that position and become the actors so that we can properly defend and protect our families, ourselves, and our community. And I'll rest my mic with that.
Thank you for that, my dear brother, Sister DC Price.
Well, I was listening to Brother Muhammad as he was speaking. I had some thoughts before he began, and I guess now I have a lot of mixed emotions. I was brought up in a household with a mother, and a father. My father was an authoritarian. He was the boss. He paid the cost to be the boss. That's what he would say. And what I saw my father do was work several jobs, was, you know, bring his money home, make his money available, fully available for whatever we needed in the household. And uh, that was, he was the disciplinarian, but that was pretty much it. Um, Not until I became an adult woman did I see where he was lacking. Excellent provider, not financial, not so much emotional, not so much in real, real life, a real person. Um, so all that sums up to, I think that my brothers need to focus on finding themselves, being authentically who they are. Focus on uh, making financial ends meet. If they want to be in a relationship, their focus needs to be on having the financial means to do that. Um, and if they have children, they need to stand as a example and stand as a protector for the wife and children. Um, I don't begin to try to tell any black man what he should be because um, I really don't think that we fit in any type of mold. I think we're all very different. Our motivations, our backgrounds. Um, I just urge every person, every brother and sister I have to be the best person you can be. Be truthful, be authentic, and just do your best every day. I yield the mic.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now, when we talk about this idea of black men finding themselves, that's a very interesting concept because, quite simply, is there a standard template for black men, that all a certain baseline that black men should be aiming for, such as being um, gainfully employed, educated, provider? What are the expectations that should undergird our community and what our community is relying upon black men for? Anyone? Go right ahead, Dan.
And my name is Danny Aubrey, and I want to echo, I think, a lot what has been said already, but particularly what Sister DC said. Um, I think that as different as we are, Black men and Black women, and as different as we all are uniquely, individually, I think that one thing remains true. Who we should be is our authentic self. And who should the Black man be? I would say he needs to be whole. He needs to be healed. He needs to be self-actualized, and so what that means, I agree with Sister DC. I don't think that there's one mold or one model that any of us should strive to. But I think that I have felt for a while that um, as a group, Black men have been less um, likely to seek the mental health care professionals and all. I think that we've talked about before. I think there's a lot that we can gain from therapy, and just being our best selves, because of course I believe you have to be your best for yourself before you can extend that to anyone else. So that's it for me. I don't think that there is anything, it's not about income, it's not about education, it's about being your best self. And I think everything will extend from that. And I yield.
And when we talk about this idea of, and it's sort of the elephant in the room when you begin to talk about the status of Black men and the multifaceted nature of who they are and who they could be at their best selves. The idea of mental health, the idea of being able to reach out for help, it seems to serve for far too many in the minds of far too many of our brothers and even our sisters that it is a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you are somehow less manly because you haven't been able to, in the words of Guru from Gangstar, to hold the weight. You can't stand under that weight, so you got to reach out to get some help. How do we really expect for Black men to be willing to go and seek mental health services when it appears to be that the baseline for so much of our existence, and especially when you're talking about heading a household and one's socioeconomic status being tied to one's image and understanding of Black men and really an understanding of one's self-esteem. Do we really, can we really expect for Black men to consider that the way that they're feeling and the experiences that they're having is somehow not the standard typical experience that all Black men, if not all Black people, including Black children, have been cursed to endure in this nation?
I think one part of that, Doc, is that we have to understand that the standard of what a man is, where did that standard came from? In this America, in this time, it came from the white man. That's where it came from. So the understanding of what a man is, what success is, you look at that vision, because that's the vision that's painted before the world. If you're not this, you're not going to be successful, right? And so you will see people begin, not just Black men, but Black women will do it too. They will begin to alter who they think they are to be pleasing in the sight of people who don't really give a dang about us in the first place, right? And so understanding that and seeing, even when you listen to them, right? Those men who have, taken on and got little Becky for their wives.
When you say them, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Black men that, think that are proud that they got the white woman as their wife, right? When you listen to them, even the inflection of their tone is not the same like one of ours. I've watched several videos of interracial couples, and all the Black men in these videos, they talk the same, and their inflection is very light. They don't have that. Even they can be real big brother, but yet talking like a fairy. And so what it is just like for me when I got into the military. And my first sergeant pulled me to the side and said, look, you're going to be very successful. But what you need to do is get you a white woman, because that white woman will ensure that you're going to move up into the ranks. Now, when he told me that, I was like, wow. But I already had a seed in my mind about race first. So it didn't pull me in that direction. But he was making sure that I understood that you got talent. And if you put this white woman on your arm, you're going to go places and you're going to go there very fast. Right? And so the understanding is, if you really want to fit in, you got to be in. And so when a Black man, and I really would to say to any Black person, we can go to counseling, we can go to therapy. And, no matter whether it's a white therapist or a Black therapist, and you can tell them your problems. But at the end of the day, when we really just look at it, because all you're really doing is going to somebody and telling them what you feel, right? and then they taking it, reflecting on it, and giving it back to you. Now, some may prescribe you medication that you know you need or you might not need. They may do that, or they may continue to talk to you. But at the end of the day, whatever your issue that you're having, they can't solve it because they don't have the answer to it. We go around in America and we get diplomas that say we are what we are not. And we know that because we got a lot of medical doctors, but there's a lot of sick people walking around that they can go to the doctor's office, but don't get really healed. We know that you can come to the pharmacy and we'll give you medication. That's not really going to heal. It'll put a stop on your symptoms, so it won't send it to the brain. It won't send the message to the brain that you're still in pain. So it's a false reality. And the only way we as men going to be the man who we supposed to be, we have to get our connection from the God that we have. And that can't be a white man's God. When you look at the picture of the God that you see, if that's a white man, you'll never find who you are. You won't. And that is the biggest problem that we have. We have the wrong understanding of who God is and who the enemy is. So we have a wrong understanding of who we are. And we don't function as we should. Because anytime we as men, you can be a professional MMA fighter and you watching your brother get killed and you afraid to step off the pavement into the street, and they control you, not with their gun out, not with their stick out, but with the words come out of their mouth, and you're afraid. See, you don't know who God is, you don't know who you are, and you darn sure don't know who the enemy is. So I think that's our major problem. That's our major problem that we have. And I rest my mic down.
Sister Danny.
Well, the only thing that I was going to add, something that Brother Muhammad said made me think about, he said, still so many lost and still looking for white acceptance, as success. And the first thing I talked about was Hubert Davis, right? When he was in his press conference and they're asking him, talk to us about, being this monumental.
If you can hold that for 1 second.
Sure.
Hold that thought for 1 second. Because here, this will aid you in what you're getting ready to say, just in case the audience missed Hubert Davis's litany.
African-American head coach in any sport in the history of the University of North Carolina. I'm very proud to be African-American, but I'm also very proud that my wife is white. And I'm very proud that my 3 beautiful, unbelievable kids are a combination of both of us.
So go right ahead, Danny. Keep going.
You quick with it, James. I mean, what is there to be said? He said it all. But, similar to what Brother Muhammad said, sometimes you know them. You know them. You know them by, how white boys have their uniform. Right? And the classic white boy uniform is khakis and a blue button down. Okay. So you see so many people who, they adopt that white boy uniform. They won't wear their hair faded. That's too, that's too black. You know them when you see them typically. But that's all I wanted to add. When Brother Muhammad said that, I immediately went to, I can't call him brother, I immediately went to Hubert Davis, because he said in that moment everything I needed to hear, that my success, I may have, I'm here, but I need you to know that I'm with you because of all the things that I have accomplished. My greatest accomplishment is getting a white wife. And he meant that. And I yield.
Okay, well, let's examine this a little bit. Because in many ways, and I often talk about this with about Black men, and it is you're often between a rock and a hard place, because at the on the one hand, I'm reminded by I don't remember the group's name. I want to say it was the Weather Girls. Um, Something about ain't nothing going on but the rent. So on the one hand, you have a situation where Black America has in many ways integrated itself to the best of its ability, completely out of any economic independence, where we basically gave the farm away when we were seeking a union with people who in many ways have shown us at every turn that Gwen Guthrie, okay, Danny, um, that they didn't want anything to do with us. Now, in saying that, without finances, it's darn near impossible for I'm just dealing with Black men, for Black men to really be respected as the head of household and what have you. We have this term that's being bannered about, and the term is high value man. And they're talking about these Black men who are making six figures and above. And I believe that that number is like 10% who make 100,000 and above. Well, if that is the epitome of, for some people, of Black manhood, if they're tying it directly to finances, it appears that a person like Hubert Davis, who ingratiates himself to the white world and receives the rewards of basically, um, as my brother Ed put it, tap dancing without music being played. Is there a better is that a strategic choice that they're making to basically do white folks bidding and things like that for money? And of course, Hubert Davis's situation is a bit different because he's proud that his wife is white, which was a just horrible choice of words, horrible imagery for everyone involved. But do Black men need to do a bit of selling out, I guess, to reach some type of economic or financial stability that would allow them to quote unquote be respected by some segments of Black women in their home? Sister Danny.
Well, I think there's a lot there. I think it always is worth saying that when we hear all of these, these buzzwords, the high value man, and and this is what the standard should be. This is what you want in a mate. No, that's not everyone. Let's first of all say that. But I think you touched on something that is very real when we talk about, the rock and the hard place that the Black man may be in, in feeling that he needs to have a certain amount of earning potential capital or whatever to be the high value man, that his family would expect him to be, or the head of his house or what have you. Um, and I just want to go straight to finances, because that's, that is totally not the measure of a mate, the standard for me. But what I want to point out is that we have, I believe, come so far from valuing
People.
being a small business owner. You know what I'm saying? We want I won't say we, so many want so much the prestige of having a position with someone else, that they neglect to think about the capital that they can create, and the legacy and the wealth that they can create on their own. And I think we've talked about this before. We have got to get back to preaching that, to our children, and having adults buy into that as well, because we know corporate and anything else, there's a limit to what you can do. And do you want to be, a C-level, C-suite administrator, executive for someone, because of the money? Or are you happy with earning that money owning two trucks, 18 wheelers? What is it that you want? So I think that's very real. We need to get back to thinking about how you create your own wealth, how you can create your own lane that is not dependent on anyone else. And I yield.
Well, the economic thing is always interesting for me because I've said for the longest time to black men that if you have any type of criminal background behind you, it's time that we start thinking about you being an entrepreneur because who's going to really give you a chance? If you can get a foot in the door, they're not going to really let you advance in regards to that. But going back to the idea of finances and socioeconomic status, one of the things that I think that we rarely talk about our quote unquote educated or intellectual class is that so many of them are capitalists. So many of them are pursuing the very material trinkets and accoutrements that they see their white counterparts or they think their white counterparts are going after. They need a BMW. They need to live in this neighborhood in X, Y, and Z. Um, it's sort of the exact opposite to it's one of my favorite rap groups of all time, Run DMC, where they're talking about I can still hear the lyrics. The Calvin Klein's no friend of mine. Don't want nobody's name on my behind. Um, they seem to not want to purchase anything that doesn't have a white European designer's name on it. And I believe that becomes sort of the standard of your legitimacy, your viability of being a partner. And that speaks volumes about what has been about how far we have strayed away from whence we initially came from. Have we forgot what being a man actually means, and have we relegated and denigrated it? And I'm speaking in general terms to the idea of what can you purchase me? What can you provide for me? And these things are material acquisitions. Is that where we are? Is that who we are now as a people by and large?
Well, I'll jump in. I think you hit it really on the nutshell. We have become so indoctrinated and really overwhelmed with, all the glitz that's out here and all of the uh, celebrity, whatever. You're not a person unless you're blinging, unless you got 25 inches of Malaysian hair, unless you're riding a BMW, etc. And we lose ourselves. We don't develop a real persona. We don't develop a real, authentic being. All we're doing is trying to mirror image the things that we see, and we forget completely about being real, true people. I should not have to have an expectation of a black man. I should be able to meet a black man and have conversations with him and identify that we're intellectually on the same level, and then we should be able to live our lives. The problem that I've run into is that I meet brothers that, whether they make six figures or three figures, are so caught up in trying to present some type of persona that they can't live up to. So then they become frustrated and they lie and they want to cheat and they want to do all these crazy things. And it's just, it wrecks everything. Back to developing a true person within yourself and not focusing on the bling, whether you can afford it or not afford it. Focus on being a good person. I yield.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I definitely agree. Um, a lot of it is caught up in the imaging. What I look like. I'm driving a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes. And I'm better because I have arrived. I've come from the bottom and now I'm in the middle, working my way to the top. And so in that, their sickness. See, because capitalism is all about the individual. And that was not our way. That was not our way. That's the way of the enemy. And so in order to be close and to get approval, then you have to take that mindset. You have to take that capitalist mindset, which is about self and the hell with anybody else. So it's not about the terms where, you know, you got to be faithful to your wife. No, because she better be happy that she got me. Right? So it's the erosion of who we are. And like the study I did one day down in Jackson, Mississippi, and I asked all, you know, elderly retired Black people and one white person, was integration, was that the right thing for us to do? And all the elder Black people I asked were all retired, you know, professional. Every last one of them said no, they wish we didn't do it. I asked the white lady, I asked her what was her thing on it. She said, well, it was a 50-50. The problem is that you had to give up who you are in order to come into our way. And when she said that, bells went off. Yeah, we did. We had to give up who we are, our own values, our own ways. And we had to accept these ways in order to fit in. You fitting in into a system that's diametrically opposed to your existence. I mean, we just saw the lieutenant in the Army getting done bad, and he's out here, quote unquote, fighting for the freedom of the same people who was about to whip him and would have shot him if he moved in the wrong direction. So we really have to stop and analyze, what are we doing? There's only one man in the house. Ain't no two men gonna run the house at the same time. It's just one. And so if we're gonna run it, then we gotta take it. So the white man said, this is my house, and I'm gonna run it my way. And you either bow down and get with what I put out, or you're gonna suffer. So now the challenge is there. Now it's what we gonna do as men. Are we gonna step up? Because we see this that's going on, it ain't right. Or we gonna let our children and the future of us continue suffering the same old stuff that we should never have been suffering. We letting things that is now becoming acceptable or the norm, when in reality, it's unacceptable. So, you know, we have to cure that sickness of wanting to be accepted by our enemies, wanting our enemies to treat us right when they never will. I rest my mic.
You bring up a very interesting point, and it is quite simply that white society and white wealthy white men in particular, and even those who are their middle class managers, possess the ability to, in many ways, make or break Black men. When the base is you need to go out there and get a job and you need to make some money. Now, if that's your entire mindset and that's all that you're about, you're in every way never going to be of much use to your own people, because you're so busy trying to shore up the meager situation that you're in right now. So the question becomes, when you're looking at Black men who are devoid of a plan, what would be the advice that each of you would provide to them? What is it that they need to be seeking to do to break this hamster wheel running in place, revving their engine, but the car never going in drive existence? What would be some of the steps going forward that you would give them?
Go back to what I've said before. You first have to develop your person. You have to come up with some principles, some standards. What do you, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to live your life? And how can you achieve that? What do you stand for? What, what are your principles? Without principles, you are a leaf floating in the wind. Any direction someone blows and says, get this money here, get this woman there, get this house there, whatever, you're going to go in any direction. And you're not going to be successful. You're going to be a puppet on a string and dancing for the puppeteer. I can get you to do anything. All I have to do is dangle some, uh, societal goal in front of you, and you'll just go for it.
Okay, when we talk about that, the almost the casting of a carrot and getting them to follow that carrot, I'd like to kind of shift the conversation and ask the Black women who are on the line this question right here. What are your expectations of Black men? And do you think that Black men understand what those expectations are to be involved in some semblance, some form of a relationship with a productive relationship with Black women? Sister Danny, go right ahead.
This is where it gets, kind of, I don't know. Um, I feel like we spin our wheels sometimes, because I can't say that I have an expectation for Black men necessarily. I have an expectation for my partner, you know, and those are individual expectations.
Mhm.
I expect my partner to be a leader, you know, but a leader who
So
um,
what does that mean?
it means I'll give you examples. I mean, I think some people know that, who've been here that I try my best not to bother people, but if you push me, Miss Sophia comes out a little bit. So you can't put Miss Sophia with Harpo. You see what I'm saying? I need somebody who is, I think that the people here understand what I'm saying. I'm not a fighter, but when we got to fight, I need somebody who's going to get in there and fight with me toe to toe. I cannot have a weak man, and it's up to us all to identify what that is, But if you are mush mouth and you let people push you around, we will never be able to make it. So my expectation is that I have a strong partner with a strong mind, a strong will, self-respect, and is willing to, we have to, sometimes we lay down, I get it, but you better get up and fight. So that's what I mean. I need a leader. And anything else. And so with that characteristic right there, I mean, we all know. So when people throw out the term of a high value man, what does that mean? That is, you have to define that for yourself, because if you're a man, who you make, I don't care, so you make $300,000 a year, whatever, okay, whatever, but you're too good to cut the grass. You won't, you can't sweep nothing. You won't babysit your kids. I mean, what is that? So we all have to make our individual choices. That's not it for me. I want a partner, you know. So I think it's really difficult to say what you expect from Black men. I don't expect anything from anyone as a group. I expect, like I said originally, that you be whole. You determine for yourself what you need and what you're lacking. You have to be on that individual journey, to personal fulfillment and personal greatness, But for my partner, I have very specific things that I want, but that doesn't have anything to do with Black man. You be the Black man you want to be, and you go find you a woman who wants that, And I'm going to be the Black woman that I am, and I'm going to find the Black man that fits my needs. That's just the way I see it.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else want to jump in here? Okay, when we deal with this idea of the Black man once again, um, what is his role now? Because we know that at the founding of this nation, that the initial parcel of, and they were not even called enslaved, they were half free individuals. They were brought in here to work, and they were integral to the survival of Jamestown, of the Jamestown colony. You know, I remind people all the time that when you look at the initial attempt of the British to settle a colony, which was Roanoke, they wound up having to turn to cannibalism. Jamestown, we have archaeological evidence that says that they did the exact same thing, even going so far as to have parents eating their children. Now, having said all of that, the black man's introduction aided with the development of the colony, cash crops, and all of that. That is all U.S. history. But he was brought here to work. He was brought here in many ways to be a permanent labor source, to be a quote unquote beast of burden. Yet, having said that, if we fast forward to the 21st century, is the brunt and brawn of black men necessary now for this nation to flourish with all of the technological advancements, machines, and what have you that are serving to produce goods and what have you? And if he's not, if that's no longer his role, what is his role? What is his new niche? Is he aware of even the need to make a niche for himself, the need to survive? And that's for anyone who wants to answer. Go right ahead, Sister Regina.
So I wonder, I understand the idea of, the black man or the enslaved African, the ideal was a brute, labor force, etc. I get that. But that wasn't all that the enslaved African man did. I mean, certainly they they enslaved our intellect as well. So I just want to push back a little bit about that image, I guess, because yeah, that image is true, but they also used us for our intellect. But what that translates for me today, maybe we don't need that brute force, but regardless of your physical makeup or, etc., I still expect the black man in general to defend children, and by defend, stand up for us, advocate for us, create a society, create a home life, create a community life that affirms us and sustains us and celebrates our culture. So I do expect defense in that way. You don't, yes, at some level, you do have to be prepared to physically defend me if necessary. But also, I'm prepared to physically defend myself, and we can manage those battles together if need be. But just wanted to put that out there, that expectation out there.
Yeah, but the question that I would respond with to you is, when we're looking at the contemporary plight of the majority of, well, I'm not going to say the majority, but a sizable population of African American males. Um, these are men who, if they were 3, 4 generations back, would have been like my father and, and my uncles. These are men who worked at steel mills. They worked in manufacturing centers, and they provided for their homes that way. And of course, we know with working class people that that job dictates when you go on vacation, what you will do, what type of home you will purchase, and what have you. Um, what would what do contemporary black men who are maybe marginally educated do, especially within a nation where you have a sizable population of women who believe that if you're not bringing no money to the table, then you're really not marriageable? you're really not a suitable person to head a household. What about that population of individuals? What do we say to them? What do they do? Is there any hope for them, especially if they're involved in the criminal justice system as well?
Yeah. You made a comment, and it may have been last week, about the fact that you come from the working class and you stand up for the working class. And that resonated with me because I recognize that about myself and I've never articulated it in that way. But being coming from the working class, like I'm solidly working class. Um, and with that, I recognize that the boys that I grew up with absolutely were not given the same opportunities that I was given in school, in college, on the job. So I understand that reality. And I understand that this is not the choice that every woman would make, but I could completely understand. Like, I went to college on a scholarship, so if not for that scholarship, my mom wouldn't send me to college. So I was still in the same boat as so many others in my neighborhood. So I recognize you can be smart, you can be talented, you can have greater skill, but based on the job you're lucky enough to get, based on the education that, comes along your way, you might not reach your full potential. Your job, your earnings have really no reflection on who you are as a person. So I understand that. And I think that my working class background really helps me to understand that. And, now I'm married and I have my own business. Business is doing well. I'm current, even before that, I made more than my husband. My husband came from another country with with nothing, but with some prayers and the dreams, our prayers and dreams. Um, so that's never been a measure for me. Like, do you make the same as me? Do you make more than me? So no, you probably don't. Just because of the opportunities that I was afforded, but that doesn't mean you're less valuable than me. That doesn't mean that you're less of the head of the house than me. You absolutely got to be in charge. You have to be that leader. That is also an expectation. And Danny talked about that a little bit
One of the questions that I would present with that, and I'm sure it's one that you could talk for days about, is the the constructs that we have as far as westernized Christianity working against the best interest of Black men and Black women, as far as these head of household, these different things that seem to flow into the minds, into the psyches of not just Black women but also Black men as well, because I believe that some Black men will shy away from certain situations if they've been inundated with the idea that they need to be head of household, and they translate that into you need to be making more money than the woman that you're with. Um, is Christianity working against Black men?
Is that what that is? Is that Christian? But maybe it is. But then I wonder though, because we don't see Black men like overly involved in the Christian church.
Yeah, but I don't think that their lack of presence on a weekly basis, even monthly basis, sometimes yearly basis, doesn't mean that they haven't been exposed.
Yeah.
And Brother Muhammad talked about earlier that a great argument could be made that many Black men's understanding of manhood flows directly from what they saw white men do. Okay. And, I'm reminded of some of those old diary entries that you have these plantation owners who had sharecroppers, and they're at their wits end because they can't get these recently emancipated men to put their wives out into the field to work. And invariably, the answer as to why is the sharecropper, the black sharecropper will look at them and say, well, your wife don't work. She ain't out in no field. So why should mine be out there? So in many ways, it's kind of, it appears as if that could be a significant portion of their understanding of what manhood is. And then it could also be a significant portion of what Black women understanding of manhood is as well. And you'll hear sisters say something very similar to that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, again, I'm married now, but like in my single days, certainly I encountered a number of men that, it would be some comment like, oh, you make too much money for me. Or you inevitably get to the point of, so what do you do for a living? And then I start talking about my job. Oh, what kind of job? You don't work at a store, you don't do hair, you don't work at a restaurant. You know what I'm saying? You think. So, oh no, that's not for me. What you mean that ain't for you? You want a stupid broad? I certainly, I can remember one in particular. The first time we got to a place where, yes, you can know where I live and you can come to my home. I have a nice home. I take pride in my home. And the immediate response was, this is too good for me. How much money do you make? This is too good. Like, I'm basic. I'm working class. I'm a single mom at that point, and so that was not unusual to encounter that and get that response from men where it was just like, no, you have evidence of too much money, or I can't maintain this, even though they weren't asked to maintain it. So I could see that as an expectation.
And one of the questions I like to pose to the entire group is: are we misreading who we are as far as a Black populace? So often we speak about Black America as if it's almost not necessarily, not quite monolithic, but there is some commonalities that run through it. Can we say that and being absolutely truthful and accurate? Or is it a very real possibility that there are several different types, levels, or even classes of Black men who are all existing under a far too wide umbrella that are defining them as being Black men? Sister Danny, jump right in.
That resonates for me. Because again, I think it just still goes back to some very fundamental things, in my opinion, about what is instilled into you, you know, what you are, what you internalize, So, I mean, I try to, certainly don't get it all right, but I try to make certain that I tell this young man all the time, you you embrace who you are. There is no one way to be a man. There is no one way to be a Black man. There is no one way to be a Black woman. We do not have unified interest, You have to be secure in yourself. You have to be secure in yourself and know that you are worthy. I'm sorry, because you don't have, if you are a man, and I don't want to say, but the term, we hear a lot, is the fragile male ego. If you feel like you can't be partnered with a woman who makes more than you, that is a shortcoming within yourself. How can you have someone who would make you feel like you're less than, whether she spoke it or not? That's you. And that's something that has to be worked through. So I think that if we do look at things as being as simplistic as, Black men and Black women, my thing, I am going to ride for Black people and Black families. Okay. Now, that Black family may be a Black family of blurs. They may be militant. They may be whatever, emo. You can be whatever you want to be, and you still can be grounded. you know, and riding for Blackness. You know, so I think that that is just critical that I am doing, and I try to preach that message. Do not allow anybody to tell you what you have to be. You be firm and secure in who you are. And when you go and look for a partner, these are the things you look for. You know, if you're looking for, see, that's where we get messed up. And I understand that sometimes we have a very narrow thoughts about what we want, you know. But if you're looking for one narrow definition or illustration for what your partner can be, you're gonna have some issues. But and I yield. But it gets back to that ego. If you can feel it, because I have dealt with it. You know, I know we all have our stories. You know, but people assuming who I was, you know, based on some credentials. You don't know, you ain't never had a conversation with me, you know, but you have decided that I'm going to be an issue, and you have decided that this relationship is going to be problematic. And thank God I have gotten to a point where I can say, you know, hey, deuces, that's fine. Because if you can't stand in your own, we can't stand together. And I yield.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And we here at Manhood, Race, and Culture have a relatively unique way of closing out our show. And so I will pass the mic to my dear brother, Maurice Muhammad, who will go ahead and close us out tonight. Go right ahead, my brother.
All right, thank you, Doc. Thanks, everybody. A beautiful program as normal. As we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.